everyone, thanks for joining part 2 of our Loon series we're airing this summer. Today, my guest speaker is Linda Grenzer. She's with Loon Rescue Incorporated out of Wisconsin. And she's talking about how she and her husband rescue loons, why loons need to be rescued, and what we can all do to stop loons from being harmed, and what we can do to help them to thrive here in Minnesota. So thanks for joining. Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm with Linda Grenzer, and we are at the kickoff of a Loon series that I hope to continue down the road as well. And Linda, you are with Loon Rescue Incorporated that you started, right?
Correct. With my husband, yes, with my husband, Kevin.
Okay, let's just kick it right off. Tell us about first, how'd you get inspired with working with loons?
Well, actually, when we moved up here in '93, my son found a loon nest when he was turtle hunting, and that's pretty much what started it. And I progressively gotten more involved with loons from becoming a loon ranger in '94 to hooking up with Walter Piper in the Loon Project and the study of his banded birds, and then finding and seeing a need that loons needed to be rescued throughout the state of Wisconsin. So in 2013 is when we started rescuing, but we actually, once we both retired in 2016, 27 respectively, we were going 11, 12,000 miles a year to rescue not just loons, but eagles and swans and pelicans, that we started a nonprofit in 2022, which is Loon Rescue Incorporated.
Okay, and tell me what's involved with Loon Rescue Incorporated.
Well, Loon Rescue, we answer our phones 24/7. We're getting the word out. Our name is getting out there because we just don't get calls from Wisconsin. We get calls from all over the country and Canada when people are seeking help for a loon that is in distress, whether it's entangled or it's beached or it does not look right. And lots of times we can find other people that are locally in the area to help them, and other times we give them advice. And then in the ones in Wisconsin, we personally go and rescue ourselves if that person isn't able to successfully capture, if it was an easy capture like being beached, or if we have to drive hours. Sometimes if we drive hours, then they can't find the loon if they're not looking for it. Because a loon, when they're entangled or in distress, lots of times will go hide along the shoreline or under a pier. And sometimes it takes us hours to find that same loon if somebody would have just kind of watched it while we got there.
Right. And so the saddest thing is always the prevention, right? You wouldn't have to rescue if there wasn't a prevention. And this isn't just loons dying of old age. This is human-caused rescues. And so what's causing you to have to rescue loons?
There's quite a few different rescues that we have done over the years. We have done, and I can specify them, I'm just going to list them. Lead poisoning is our number one. If somebody fishes with a little lead sinker and that loon swallows that little lead sinker, let's say the person's fishing with bluegills, and they hook a bluegill that swallows the hook, line, and sinker. Lots of people, if it's that small, will cut the line and throw that fish back into the water. Well, that fish is a little slow right now, and the loon sees it, grabs it, and lots of smaller fish, the loon eat. They swallow the fish whole. So when that loon swallows that fish whole, that lead sinker goes down its throat just with the rest of the food. The food gets processed, but the lead sinker remains. And in 2 to 3 weeks, a healthy loon will die a slow, agonizing death due to lead poisoning. That's why it is so important. We try to get the word out continuously to please get the lead out of your tackle box. Use lead-free alternatives. There's many out there that are just as effective. and it will save a loon, because if we don't get that loon quick enough after it's ingested that lead sinker, there is chelation treatment that our rehabber can use to get the lead out of the blood system. But a lot of the loons are in such bad shape, it's already start shutting down their internal organs or their neurological issues, and that loon is not going to make it. Another one is entanglements, is another one that we get a lot of calls on, especially like after Memorial Day weekend. It seems like that's when it really starts, all the way into fall, when the juveniles are, the young loons are left to fend for themselves when their parents leave, and they go for that easy meal. So one thing we suggest to people, if they're fishing and they see a loon diving or swimming around their boat, please pick up your line and wait for that loon to leave, because those loons are fast, and sometimes they're just as quick that they grab that minnow or that lead sinker or jig, which you shouldn't be using lead, but people do. But they grab it, and it's within seconds they're entangled. If the loon does not leave the area, then please move somewhere else so you can go return fishing without the loons involved. Accidents do happen. People do sometimes do not realize the loon's in the area, and it grabs their hook and they get entangled. The best thing to do is do not cut the line and let that loon go, because the problem is we have a 1 in 10 chance of catching that loon, even during night capture, if that loon is diving. And it's so much easier if you would get it into the boat or take it to the shoreline, and give us a call, and we can actually come or talk you through how to unhook a loon. If a loon ingests or swallows the hook or line, it does need to go into a rehabber to try to hopefully get that hook out. What we suggest then is, if you do have the loon in your possession, to leave at least 2 to 3 feet of line coming out of the mouth, because that loon, the rehabber is going to need that line to access to hopefully get that hook out easily than if you would cut it right by the bill. If you see a loon entangled, give us if for some reason you do catch a loon and the line breaks, please call us immediately and let us know what you were fishing with, where the lake is, and how much line you think this loon has. The problem is some people don't call, or some people cut the line and let the loon go, and then we have to get the call later on when somebody sees this loon that's got line wrapped around its entire body, or actually it's already has passed. We actually had one loon, and this is one of Walter Piper's study loons, that somebody must have been soaking a minnow unattended, and that loon was found dead on a lake along with the fishing pole attached to it. So it took the line and the pole, and it actually died before it was found. Another thing is loons. We rescue quite a few loons that are hit by boats or jet skis, where they have trauma to their bodies, or they're actually sliced apart. So when you're out there doing your boating, please keep an eye out for those loons and try to veer away. Yes, I do understand loons pop up anywhere, but lots of times when you're out there, you should be aware of your surroundings, because you got to remember, this is their home. They're sharing their home with you. So you should make it safe for them to also be able to produce and survive. Another issue we have with loons is fireworks. A lot of people, especially during the 4th of July, weeks before and weeks after, are lighting off fireworks along their shoreline. These loud impacts actually scare these birds. And lots of times the families of little chicks, which are normally smaller at that time of the year, are separated, and at times we will get the parents and chicks back if we get the calls, but sometimes they're not found again. We actually had a couple loons that have been burnt by fireworks because people are blowing them off from the shoreline, and they're not going way up in the sky, and the falling embers are falling into the lake and also falling on the loons. We had one loon chick that's back had falling embers fall on its back, which in turn it went behind with its head to flick off these hot embers and burnt its eyes. Another loon was flying over during the day, and somebody shot off a firework because this loon was found on the ground with embers that burnt its feathers between two lakes. So fireworks is actually very disturbing and very harmful to all our wildlife, especially our loons. That's about the only ones, the main ones I can think of. When you find a loon in distress, there's a couple ways. Of course, when a loon is entangled, a person can visually see that. Lots of times when a loon does get entangled, it rolls or barrel rolls, which in turn the line continually twists around its bill, its head, its wings, its body, and it starts getting tighter and tighter and cutting off circulation as that loon is rolling. When a loon is finally exhausted, it will slowly swim, and lots of times if it's around its mouth or if the line is around its tongue, its mouth is actually cracked open a little and it's continually swimming with its mouth open. When a loon is in distress, lots of times they will go hide, or they will be found real close in shallow shorelines. They'll be along logs, they'll be in along the tree branches, they'll hide under piers, they'll hide under boat lifts and swim rafts. And if a loon is really in bad shape, they will actually beach themselves, which means they will scoot up on normally a very gradual slope, such as a sandy beach, grass, or a lot of boat launches. We get beach loons where they are so cold because when a loon cannot preen, which a loon does to keep their feathers weatherproofed, they can't get their weatherproofing, and they're cold, and they come up on the shoreline because they cannot keep themselves warm.
So what would you say to, I have friends who are fisher people, and they say, well, it's too expensive. I mean, I'm not going to get rid of all my lead tackle because it's too expensive to buy other stuff.
Basically, you are saving a loon's life and other wildlife that might predate on that loon that is found dead with lead poisoning. It's worth it for a loon's life. A loon is a long living, about 30 years, give or take, depending, that's their lifespan. And when you kill one loon with a lead sinker, you're not just killing that loon by using that lead sinker, you're also killing every loon that loon produces. And our loons are on decline, and eventually we won't be seeing loons. So the only way we can help a loon is to do the right choice and get that lead out of your tackle. If I can get the lead out of my 88-year-old dad's tackle box who has used it for years, everybody else should be able to do that also. Many states out east have banned the sale of lead. I hope one day Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan do too. That way it won't be on the shelves anymore. And they have seen a decrease in the loons that have perished due to ingesting a lead sinker.
Yeah, it's weird that you can't deer hunt with lead, but you can still fish with lead when it's.
No, you can deer hunt with lead too.
Oh, can you?
Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. Okay, we, like I said, besides loons, we rescue eagles, swans, pelicans are some of the main big ones we do. And After deer hunting, when people use that lead bullet and they leave that carcass out there or the gut pile, the bald eagles find it. And within a few weeks after them ingesting all those little lead fragments, they're getting lead poisoning and we're getting phone calls to go rescue them. And lead is so toxic to us. We've taken it out of our paint, we've taken it out of our gas, we've taken it out of our water lead pipes. And when somebody is hunting with a lead bullet, and there's studies, and you can go see it online, how that lead, when that hits that deer, that little lead fragments are all over the place in that meat. And you're feeding your family that venison that's got little slivers of lead. So if you use copper bullets, you're going to save yourself also from ingesting lead. So yeah, lead is also still used for deer hunting.
Oh, that's sad. Yeah, and eagles also eat the fish that might have eaten a lead sinker, um, that you have to rescue, right?
Right. Well, swans also get a lot of lead poison too.
Ugh. Well, Linda, is there anything else? I'm so grateful for your work, and I wish that you did not have to have this organization. We didn't need to have loons rescued, but I wanted to be a part of getting the message out on how people can help protect our loons, because it is the icon of Minnesota and Wisconsin Midwest. And I love hearing them, and I want to see, and at the cottage too, I've done the same thing. I've cleaned out I make every visitor, family member, and cousin, relative, friend come to have lead-free tackle. And it's an education each time, because they don't understand why. And
a lot of people don't realize that yet. Even when we do rescue a loon that we know has lead poisoning, a lot of the signs with a lead poison loon is they're lethargic. They're swimming real close to the shoreline. They're easily approachable. They're sleeping for hours and hours in a very shallow area. Some loons that are so sick, they actually drown because they cannot keep their head up out of the water anymore. But those are some of the big signs of lead poison. As I said, majority of the loons that we rescue with lead poison are already too far gone that they can be successfully rehabbed. The few that we have saved are the ones that were fishing and were entangled also. And we caught them quick enough that the lead was successfully taken out of their system with lavage surgery. I can leave you with this one loon that the people called him Lester. And it's about 45 minutes from our house. It's called Seven Island Lake. On Labor Day weekend, we got a call about a loon significantly entangled. 45 minutes it took us to get there. We could not find that loon on this 130-acre lake. We went for hours. What we normally do is we'll go real close to the shoreline and circle it, trying to look under the piers and into the brush and near the logs. And then we'll actually, after we do the whole circle, then we'll go counterclockwise, because sometimes you might see that loon at that other angle. And we must have passed this loon 3 or 4 times, and we were almost ready to give up. What happened was he was way under a pier right along the shoreline, and the pier was kind of low, and you could not see him. But at that point, he must have moved out enough that we caught a glimpse of him. We did rescue him. We took him to Raptor Education Group, where we take all our loons in Wisconsin. He had so much line around him, around his body, his neck, his head, his tongue, and he actually had a lead sinker going down his throat. But he was just recently entangled, so he was successfully rehabbed by taking that lead sinker out with lavage surgery. He was treated with chelation because he did have some lead poisoning already leaching into his body after just 2 days. But within a week's time, he was released back on that lake. Now, this loon was banded, so we knew who he was. I went back about a week after he was released, and he was looking good. He actually returned back by his mate, and at that time they had a juvenile chick because it was in September, and everything looked great. When it came to November, we got the call that the lake started icing over, and this loon could not leave. And that's another thing we do. We do specialize in ice rescue. The loon was icing in a small area. Lester was about 750 feet out on very thin ice. We have, my husband made some modified John boats that I can safely scoot out on this thin ice. Plus we're roped up and we have our Mustang survival suits. And when I got to the area that Lester was, I was able to net him quite easily, where some loons will dive under that ice and it takes me hours to catch these loons that ice in. And lots of loons ice in because either they're sick, injured, or entangled. We actually even ice rescued a loon that had a musky lure on it, and it was actually iced onto the ice by the musky lure, but we did get it. But anyways, Lester was brought back to Raptor Education Group. He was weighed. They did more x-rays. He gained weight when he was on the lake. There was no broken bones, no fractures. The only thing we could think of is for some odd reason, he could not leave yet because that monofilament line was so tightly wound around him. He might have had soft tissue injury where his flight muscles just weren't strong enough for him to leave before the ice start encasing around him. He was taken to Florida where most loons go, and that was the PT he needed because in spring the next year, that banded loon Lester was back on Seven Island Lake. So that just showing you all the stuff that we do know that the loons do recover, and that's gives us that reason to go rescue every loon that is in need of rescue.
Is there anything you want to ask people to do before you leave? Any summary wrap up?
The biggest thing is please go through your lead tackle box and go through your friend's lead tackle box. If anything, if that's what would be great, actually replace their lead tackle box, their lead, if they don't want to get rid of it. And if you have the funds, go buy that lead-free tackle and switch it out for them. That would be because that is the main thing that we lose loons for. A lot of the other things, they can pretty much rehab them, but once they ingest that lead, and if it's been in their bodies for at least a good week or two, there's not much that we can do, even when we do rescue them. When you pick up a loon and it's almost lifeless, or you can walk up to a loon that is suffering this very painful death, they don't deserve it. They're just here eating and doing what they want to do and to survive. And if we can help them by getting that lead out of your tackle box, that would be the best thing. The other thing is also, if you give loons the 200-foot berth around when you're out and about on the lake, whether they're nesting, which in turn, if a loon is nesting and you get too close to that nest, lots of times they will flush off that nest. And when they flush off the nest, they can also take the eggs with them. So the best thing to do is to keep your distance when you do see a loon nesting, and not just motorboats. I'm talking about kayaks and canoes too, because those sometimes you approach even closer to a loon's nest. When you're out there boating, give them the berth. If you see that family, make sure you steer clear of them. When you're fishing, if any loons start coming in your area, please pull up your lines and let them move on out. If they don't move on out, then please go move your boat and fish somewhere else and lessen that chance of you capturing that loon accidentally by hooking it. And another thing is be real respectful. Like I said, these loons, this is their home and they're sharing it with us. So let's give them the chance to keep surviving and raise their family also.